Thank you so much for coming. This is really a unique experience for us at CCARE. My name is Jim Doty. I'm the founder director of the Center for Compassion and Altruism Research and Education here at Stanford, which is part of the School of Medicine and also an affiliate of the Neuroscience Institute. And I'm also a professor of neurosurgery here. What we do at our center is really to understand the neuroscience of compassion, but more importantly, the value proposition of these types of behaviors, which most of us in this room would acknowledge that really compassion, empathy, altruism define our species and actually will be those behaviors which will allow our species to survive in the future. What has happened, interestingly, that has resulted in this conference occurring is that one of my aspirations has been to take our work to the larger world, and I'm not trying to imply that there's not compassion in the larger world or there's not this type of work being done in other places, but to gather together all of those who are interested in this topic and really work with them to bring this more to the surface and have people recognize the value proposition of these behaviors. Because we know that when people practice compassion with intention, it actually has a profound effect on their mental and physical health and ultimately their longevity. Over about a year and a half ago, in a conversation with, and I don't know if she even has a role at University of Edinburgh for sure, but a woman by the name of Kirsty McGregor was at my home and we were chatting. And we have had multiple conferences on the science of compassion here in the US, and people from around the world have come. But I said, you know, really one of my goals is to have an international science of compassion and partner with a leading university. And she said, well, why wouldn't you do that with the University of Edinburgh? And I said, well, that's a great idea. And this was also in the context of potentially doing a World Compassion Festival. And this led to introductions to John Gillies, who's a family physician in Edinburgh and a prominent member of his professional society and very involved with the university. And to this woman here, Liz Grant, who is the assistant principal of University of Edinburgh in the context of the Global Health Initiative and Global Health Academy. And ultimately this led to me going to University of Edinburgh, and they were kind enough to host an event where we talked about this topic, and interestingly enough, they lost my luggage, so for 3 days I had to wear the same clothes. But nobody noticed that I was in jeans and a polo shirt, I think because they just assumed I was from California, and that's how we dressed there. But the principal who is here, Tim O'Shea, and I want to acknowledge that he's taken the time to be with us today, he with his team have really embraced this concept, and it's really been such a joy, and it has led ultimately to this conference where it is a combined event with scholars who have partnered with us here at Stanford, as well as with individuals at the University of Edinburgh, and it has led to this conference. And the biographies of all the people are in your brochures, or I should say are online. We tried to save some paper, but certainly the brochure outlines what we're doing today. And the sort of end of this event, which I think is really exciting, is a topic that seems so germane. How many of you have been watching DeepMind beat the guy who plays Go? How many people play Go? Oh. I have no clue about it, but apparently it's an extraordinarily complex game, and this is a milestone because many predicted that artificial intelligence would not be able to beat this, and now it has happened. And what is more germane now on many people's minds is this idea of what is the future of artificial intelligence, machine learning, how does that relate to our humanity, and more specifically, compassion. And that is why we are having this panel at the end where we ultimately talk about this idea with a very distinguished panel. I would like to bring Liz up at this point, who will introduce the principal of the University of Edinburgh, and then we will begin our conference. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here today, wonderful to meet so many people and to be part of this partnership for the future. Jim's already mentioned Kirsty McGregor. And Kirsty and Paul Brennan, whom you're going to hear through video today, and John Gillies and myself co-direct our Compassion Initiative, which sits in the Global Health Academy. And I just want to take a minute to tell you about the Global Health Academy at the university. It's one of 4 academies. And those 4 academies of justice and environment and development and health create the space for interdisciplinarity and connected thinking that Edinburgh prides itself in since 1583. It's about discourses together. And that's why this Compassion Initiative is so exciting, because we have discourses from so many different parts of Edinburgh University and then parts of the city of Edinburgh and in Scotland. But also it's wonderful to liaise with Jim and Monica to be part of the partnership you have here. The Global Health Academy is built on 3 premises, which actually really underpin our work on compassion. The equality of humanity. We are born equal into very unequal circumstances, and a lot of our role is thinking, how do we change those circumstances? We know many solutions are in the world already, but often we don't ask, we don't look in the right places, we don't listen to the right people, often the disempowered, often those who don't have a voice, but who have solutions. And people in partnership bring about change. We can't do it in silos, so this is movement together. For our Compassion Initiative, so much we're thinking about is, where does compassion sit? And what happens to the space in between structures? Because there is often where compassion is needed. There is often where we see a lack of compassion. I don't know whether you can make this diagram out. I apologize, it's a little small. But it just gives you a flavour of some of the work that we're beginning to do. Because within healthcare, in the healthcare sector, we're looking at the space in between the healthcare professional identity, the health worker's personal and the health worker's private space. Because in that space in between, often we see the need for compassion. Often we see the problems around burnout. Often we see areas where we can work together. But it's not just within the health that compassion is so important. We look at our smart cities. We look at where does architecture, where does our environment place us with compassion? How can we make compassionate places and spaces? We're looking around and now with the Sustainable Development Goals, changing the face and the way of global working together around development. Those Sustainable Development Goals that took over from the Millennium Development Goals require a very different paradigm. They require a paradigm that leaves no one behind, a paradigm that's actually based on value, on care, on compassion. And now is the time in this movement to speak to those goals, to show the potential and the space between cultures, particularly in business, the space of where business and the values of business sometimes don't seem to be the values of care, going in different trajectories. How can we bring together? So our programme of work is very much saying Edinburgh University wants to be a compassionate university. It means that in our mission of creating and curating and disseminating and implementing knowledge, we support students and staff to understand the value between and behind and in that space within our business schools and across our business, looking at enterprising, entrepreneurial citizens who care about value, looking at an empathy network around our teaching, and alongside that, the position papers that we're bringing together from different sciences, and from veterinary sciences, from neuroscience, from architecture, from robotics, which you'll hear about this afternoon. And Jim's mentioned the idea of an international conference on compassion, which we'd love. And as you know, Edinburgh is a city of festivals, and a festival of compassion would take us further. I want to leave you with an image. And it's an image that you may, we're all familiar with the Shakespearean quotation from The Merchant of Venice, that the quality of mercy is not strained, it droppeth as a gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives and him that takes. And you may feel mercy, that's very different from compassion. Though is it compassion to share together, to suffer together, to be with each other? There's something in that vision and that quotation that really captures where we stand in our compassion initiative. And it's about that sense that compassion is not just single acts of kindness, however important they are, and they are. Compassion's also a way of being, the gentle rain from heaven across everything. It's about relationships and relationality. It's about reciprocity. Compassion can be redemptive in our engagement. It can be restorative. And that's what we want to move forward with. It's wonderful to see you here today. There's so many ways that we can work together. We look to work together with you. If you have, during this time, ideas from the panels, from thoughts about where we could go, please do get in touch, looking at partnering, looking at the possibilities of interning, looking at how together we could bring paradigm shifts. So I'm going to call on our president of the university, our principal, Sir Tim O'Shea, to come and to welcome us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jim and Liz, for speaking so very well. On behalf of the University of Edinburgh, can I thank you most warmly for giving your time to attend this meeting today. The University of Edinburgh and Stanford is intertwined in lots of ways, most strongly in computer science. We have all sorts of partnerships in computer science, in robotics. For me, I suddenly realized that this particular floor of this building has tremendous meaning. I failed to get into the University of Edinburgh as an undergraduate or a postgraduate. I traveled here in 1973 from the University of Texas, and in one of the smaller rooms gave a talk on my work on machine learning, and somebody in the audience offered me a job at the University of Edinburgh. So that's a small intertwining. Thank you. I have to say I most vividly remember eating burritos in the sunshine rather than the talks. And Stanford and Edinburgh in the computer science world, in both domains, it extends into epistemics, it extends into philosophy, it extends into linguistics, and there are a lot of colleagues who have really got a joint Stanford-Edinburgh professional identity. In medicine, there are a tremendous number of links also, so we're used to the idea in Edinburgh that we have a particular relationship with Stanford. But when Jim came and talked to us on compassion in the autumn, I was immensely struck because he was a catalyst. I suddenly looked around in the room, and as well as obvious people like Liz, if I can put it that way, and as well as medics, as well as people who are concerned with palliative medicine, which is a big and important issue in Edinburgh. There were people associated with divinity, there were people associated with paramedicine, there were people associated with computer science. And I mean, one of the things that strikes me in my job very, very strongly, and I have to keep reminding outsiders of this, is universities are intensely idealistic communities, intensely idealistic, and the sort of language, the sort of goals that Liz was expressing are really shared by the broad body of staff and students. So I was really struck that Jim's visit and the focus on compassion brought a broad range, not just from the University of Edinburgh, also from other universities in South East Scotland, from other medical institutions, apart from our teaching hospitals. And so when it was suggested to me that we do more together, Stanford and Edinburgh, in the domain of compassion, then obviously the right thing to do. The wonderful program that's been put together for this event testifies to that too. So I'm delighted that you're here, and delighted to ask Jim to proceed.